guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a little journey I'm going to take with you today. This is going to be probably a two-part video. We're going to be discovering European horror for the beginner. People that are probably just getting into horror. Now, you and me that have probably been into horror pretty much all our lives, if you like, probably already know the importance and incredibleness that came out of Europe. Now, but some people just get into horror films. Maybe some of our American friends or even younger audiences or people that are just discovering horror, because it's never too late to discover horror movies. Might not know the importance and great cinema that is out there that is from Europe. Horror movies, when they started back in the 1800s, was it European? Horror movies originated from Europe. So without that, we wouldn't have any horror movies. And it all started off in Europe, mostly around Austria and Germany. We're making sort of loads of sort of silent movies. There is some silent movies included in my 10 recommendations today. Yeah, so Europe sort of began the horror boom, but obviously it became more popular from America in 1920s and 30s when the big movie cinema companies, Universal, started to make horror movies. And to me, the Universal horror movies is the golden age of American horror movie cinema. So there's a few flies around somewhere. It's a very warm day. And that to me was the American golden age. But before that and after that and during that, there was European horror films that were coming out that were highly original and highly magnificent. So we're going to look at some of the earlier ones today, and I'll do a video of some latter ones. So this is more of a recommendation, what I would recommend to you if you were starting to get into European horror films. So I'll try to go through not just Italian. There is a number of Italian films in here, but I can't help it. It's my favorite country of horror films throughout pretty much every generation. It's just my sort of real my favorites. But European horror really began in Europe, and it all began on, a lot of it was folklore and folk horror and adaptations of horror novelizations, horror books. You got to remember, in the sort of Victorian times and we had loads of, there was horror was prevalent in books, from authors from Mary Shelley to Bram Stoker through to Oscar Wilde. Whatever you were reading, a lot of these people integrated horror into their genre, and it was the thing. So when movies come along, it was sort of like, it was a blend of one and one together, and it was just like movies were made for horror films, really. And Europe started the craze. So we had quite a few silent movies come through, mostly from sort of Germany and countries like that, where they were post World War One. So there was a lot of sort of tension and a lot of depression around in the world, and this was all reflected in horror movies at the time. I do have a couple of German movies in here. But I'm not going to do these in any specific order, because I want these just to be just recommendations. It's not a historical video, this one. I can't do that sort of thing. But there were some incredible early sort of films coming out of Germany, and then obviously talkies came along, and then horror came along into its own, with the not just in scripted films, but obviously in the soundtrack. The music in the early films, I think, were characters in the films. And then when colour came in, some directors used colour as a character. Mario Bava, which we have one of his films in here, which I'm recommending, really emphasised colour in his film as a character. But we'll start off with a French movie from the 1960s, which I think is a really good way for you to start into European horror if you haven't. And it's called Les Uns Sans Visage, or The Eyes Without a Face, which to me is an absolute horror classic. Really, really cool film about this plastic surgeon, and he's got a disfigured daughter who's got this face disfigurement, and he is sort of killing women off to sort of take off their face to put onto his daughter to see which one sort of will fit on his daughter. Horrific story, and it's a very, very early, if not maybe one of the very first body horror films. It's just, it is kind of like, it is graphic in places. For the 1960s, it's quite graphic. There is some scenes of sort of like surgery going on, and we have his daughter who pretty much throughout the film wears like this plain white mask, and you think, oh, is that Michael Myers got inspiration from there? Most of these films probably inspired a lot of American cinema. A lot of Americans claim that they're the first, and I saw a video the other day saying, oh, Italian rip-offs of American films. I just think, what you're talking about? These films were before any of these American slasher films. The American slasher films were influenced by the Italian giallo scene. So at the end of the day, they haven't ripped anything off. Yes, some of the stories might have transformed over into Italian horror when the Italian horror took off, but no, a lot of these were way before any of these stories. These are all unique and original films that I've got to you today. That's why I picked them out. I tried to pick films that I think are original and not really like anything else, and maybe willing to influence other films that you may have seen in your life. But this is fantastic. I'm sure that British horror films copied it with a film called Corruption. I don't know if you've seen that, but I'm sure that's took some influence from this. It's an amazing, amazing film. Really cool. So I would kickstart your European horror journey with Eyes Without a Face, which was directed by Georges Franju in the 1960s. See if it's got a release date on here, guys. Doodly dee. 1960, and it's a French Italian film, so it's made by the two sort of countries together, and it's an incredible film. Really, really worth watching and seeking out to begin your European horror journey. So Eyes Without Face. In Italy in the 60s, there was a director called Mario Bava. He made loads of different films, from westerns to science fiction films, and then he dabbled into horror at the beginning, and then horror took over his career, and he made a career out of horror giallo films. And we're going to look at I think it's his first giallo film, if not the first giallo film really, and it's Blood on Black Lace. Now this is a still book, so it does say it on there, you can just about make it out. Blood on Black Lace, which was a 1970 film, I believe, made by Mario Bava. And this is the film that I was telling you about, that brings colour into the film as a character. He really sharpened the colours in the film to produce this amazing. Can I see if we can improve the light slightly? Does that do any better? Let's have a little look. No, not really. Makes no difference. So I've got this little lamp. I thought maybe I could use that, but it's a weird weather day today. It's really bright, it's warm, and it's wet, and it's windy. But anyway, yes, this is a fantastic film which takes place in the fashion world, where we get in all these beautiful, beautiful models being bumped off. And it was an introduction of the Giallo film. Now, Giallo is an Italian word, is the Italian word for yellow, which was to describe the colour of the books that these Italian thrillers were produced out. There was hundreds and hundreds of books that came out in Italy. A really popular series of books, and they're all sort of like yellow cover with a picture on there. And they were called giallo. They were pretty much thrillers. There were little horror elements going on underneath, and it turned into a movie and an Italian subgenre, and it's one of my favourite genres, as you know. I've reviewed many giallos on my channel, and this is probably one of the very first ones, and it's amazing, and it introduces us to the classic killer, with the trilby hat, the blank face, the black gloves, and normally a knife or a switchblade, and he goes around normally killing women. On the odd occasion, there's a few films like Dario Argento's Deep Red, which isn't in here. It might go into my part 2 video, because I'm going to be doing videos of a more latter sort of 70s, 80s onwards. This is going to be early stuff, like really early 70s, 60s, 50s, even maybe 1920s. This is right at the beginning of the sort of horror journey, really. The real early films, I do have some like from 1914, 1915, but I've not included them today. I don't want to bog you down with some really heavy hitters, sort of like that could be put you off the genre. I'm trying to pick films out for you that the new person into. This is really videos for people just discovering European horror. But if you're into European horror, maybe you think these are some good recommendations for some early horror films. And I just think this was amazing. It was a lot of good kills in the film, quite a bit of blood in there, hence the title Blood on Black Lace, and blood was a character in this film. And these poor women are all getting bumped off, and nobody knows who the killer is. Just like all the other giallo films, it's all held to a suspenseful end when our killer is revealed, almost like a sort of Sherlock Holmes Hitchcock sort of thing. So in Britain we'd have had Sherlock Holmes, and in America you would have had your Alfred Hitchcock, so a sort of film. So it's a kind of blend of that with blends of horror into it, and they were amazing, and I still love them to this day. They're bursting full of amazing characters, quite well scripted, although badly dubbed a lot of times if you're watching dubbed versions. Great music, great photography, amazing settings. It's normally in Italy and Spain. There are ones that ventured across the world. We do have some American giallos. We even have British giallos. So at the end of the day, it sort of took off everywhere, but it originated from Italy, and then America took over it and they turned it into what is now called the slasher film. But back then we had the giallo, and it was an amazing cinema type of horror film. It was different, and I love them because they are more use your brain more than just watching someone getting sawn in half, which I love, but it's great to have to use your brain. So I really recommend for a new beginner to check out Mario Bava's Blood on Black Lace. His other real famous film called Bay of Blood, a lot of slasher directors, John Carpenter, all these sort of big directors, all shout that as one of their influences of the slasher film. So if you're looking for an early sort of giallo that would really influence the slasher film, I would go with Bay of Blood, or in America I think it was called is it Death of the Twitch Nerve, something like that. Death of the Twitch Nerve, I'm not sure, but Bay of Blood is the title that we got, and that's a really good one to check out. But if you're just getting into, want to check out European horror, I would definitely check out Blood on Black Lace by Mario Bava. So the Italians were already hitting us with some hard hitters in the sort of 70s. Before that, they did have a number of really cool films. But another country what was really doesn't get really talked about too much when it comes to horror, and that's Spain. But some of the Spanish films were absolutely incredible, especially this one called The House That Screamed. I absolutely adore this film. It's about this sort of like girls' school, and this film has all sorts of like gothic undertones in it. There's dismemberment in this, guys. There's woman that gets found in the attic with her hands cut off and stuff. It's just so, it's tastefully done. It's not too over graphic, but it was, for its time, it was really dangerous sort of film, if you like, because it was based in a girls' school when there was torture going on and there was all these kind of horrific things going on. This was called The House That Screamed, and these young women at the school were becoming sort of almost prisoners-like and becoming victims of tortures and murder and things and all this going on. It's a really cool film. Try and get you the year of this film. It's directed by Narcisco Abanaz Serrador. That was this one. It's a Spanish film. It doesn't give me the year, but I'm sure this was 70s or might even be 60s. Let me have a little look. The booklet might give me a bit more information on the release. I really should organise my videos, shouldn't I? I'm absolutely rubbish at this sort of stuff. I have ideas in my head, you see, and I don't put it to any good use. The Italian title is called La Residencia, is the Spanish title of this film. Yeah, it come out early 1960s. Yeah, La Residencia. It's a nice release, this, from Arrow, by the way. It comes with a nice booklet, and it does come with a double-sided poster, which I really like. We've got the new commissioned artwork, and then we've got like another sort of not the original Spanish one, because it would have La Residencia written on it. But yeah, it's a really cool film, really freaking creepy and quite eerie, and it must have influenced so many other films that are out there, especially anything like Black Christmas or anything like that. It must have influenced those sort of films that came out in the 70s, because this is again based in sort of like a girls sort of score, and in British films it must have influenced Pete Walker and some of his House of the Whipcord or things like that. But a really cool film, highly recommend it. A Spanish early horror film from the 60s called The House That Screamed. So let's go way back. Let's go to Germany now, to an old amazing film. I'm trying to see if I can get the dates for you. This one, when this one came out. It's a Robert Wien film, so it's 1920. This film, so this is one of the early films, and it's by Robert Wien, and it's an incredible film, and it's a real sort of impressionist sort of horror film that sort of came out from Germany post World War One, and I think really important to the horror genre. So this is why I've included it, and it's the Cabinet des Dr. Caligari. Sorry, I always say Caligari. It's an incredible film, an amazing film. To me, it's a very sort of kind of Frankenstein kind of story, where we have this um, doctor, and he's got this zombie-like man that he uses to send out to do his crimes for him. But this zombie man finds this woman that he seems to fall for, and there's like a little bit of a love story going on, you know. So it's that sort of thing going on, but it's just mind blowing for this sort of film to have come out in 1920. This is well over 100 years old. You know, this is 106 years old, this film. And to me, it still holds up today. It's absolutely amazing. This is a great release, by the way. There's our zombie guy there. Really, really cool. It really holds up today with some really strong imagery. The director of the film went on to make loads of other sort of silent movies. The Man Who Couldn't Laugh, things like that. He made loads of which became quite big hits. But this was like one of the very early, that I would say, one of the very early recommendations I would give you to start off with the real beginning of horror films. There are films before this. We've got a Frankenstein way before this. There's even the films from 1880s or 1870s, where the one with the moon with the bullet in his face and that sort of thing. They were sort of 5, 6, 10-minute films, but this is a feature-length movie, and it's really fantastic. It has also had a 4K restoration, which I've dabbled about getting, but because I've got this beautiful steelbook edition, I've not felt the need to upgrade it, because this is a limited number one. I believe these were like numbered. Let me have a little look. I'm sure they were. Limited edition steelbook. Yeah, I'm sure these were kind of numbered to just a certain amount. So this is why I've sort of kept hold of this copy. But yes, it is still widely available. So if you want to go right back, if you want to start your horror journey right back, you know, before the Universal horrors, go back to this one, the Cabinet de Dr. Caligari, by David Wayne. It's a really cool film. I'm probably pronouncing his same surname around, Robert Waynes. But anyway, I'm rubbish with names. But this has been released by Eureka. It's a fantastic sort of gothic tale in a real impressionist sort of world, that all the backdrops you can see are all sort of almost like paintings and stuff like that, and it's being acted out almost like on a stage, but it is a film, and it's wonderfully shot, and it's terrifying. It's really creepy. I mean, our zombie guy, who went on to star in many other films, is fantastic, and the Doctor is so creepy. It really is, and you're just thinking, wow, you wouldn't trust this guy with anything. But it's really well filmed, and again, this is when music was really important to the movie, obviously, because a lot of the time back in the day, in the theatres where this would have been shown, there would have been an orchestra playing the music along with the film. And obviously it was put down onto recording and with the film. This does have a couple of alternative musical interludes on there, so it's definitely worth checking out. So if you really want to go back in really early European horror, I wouldn't go all the way back. There's loads of other movies like the Golem and other things. I would start with this one, to be honest, just because I think it's probably the most creepiest out of all of them. I do have another silent movie to come, which is amazing and it's iconic, but this one I just wanted to mention it because I think, to me, it's probably the most creepiest and probably one of the most influential films for films like, if you think of zombie films or even vampire films or even monster films, this sort of covers them all in one sort of movie. It's incredible, really well shot, great film, and it's from Germany. Now the next film, I'm sure this is Italian. Let me try and have a little look again. See if I have any information of the year of this film. Yes, it's Italian, 1962, and it's in colour. I've picked this film out just because I think if you like films that are a little bit controversial and cover subject matters that shouldn't really be covered in film, this is where it almost began, here with this one, and it's the horrible Dr. Hitchcock, released here on Radiance Films, which I do believe you can still pick up. I'm not sure if you can get this edition. This is the collector's edition. It does star Barbara Steele, an icon of early European horror, not just British horror, but also in European. She was used in many Mario Bava films like Black Sunday, which I haven't covered in here. Like I said, I try to get a bit of everything, not just one genre. So I do have a more sort of supernatural rich one coming a bit later. But yeah, this was an incredible film about this doctor that's got a bit of a perversion, necrophilia. He likes to make his partners or wives semi-unconscious, so they don't know what's happening, and then he makes love to them. But there was one stage where he accidentally ends up killing his wife because he gives her too much of this medication, and she dies. And then he brings a new wife into, and he goes through the same process. It delves into subject matters that, wow, why would you? It's perversions are dug within this film in a very sort of subtle way, and it's a very grotesque film in that sort of form, not in gore or anything like that. There's minimal gore or anything like that in the film, but it tells the story of a scientist gone mad that's using his scientific skills for the complete wrong ways that we should be using them for, to victimize women. This film couldn't be made today because it would be looked upon, well, mostly by sort of like women's rights groups and everything like that, and quite understandably so. But back in that day, they got away with films like that, you know, and it dealt with things like that. Now, this thing wasn't really dealt with before anywhere, especially in the 60s. But it did open the door, if you like, for films like Deranged, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that sort of thing. They're more serial killer films, but it introduced, even Psycho introduced a bit of necrophilia into the. No, that didn't, did it? No, he wasn't sleeping with his mother, but if you know what I mean, it sort of like introduced. It's okay to put this in the film, and it did, and it's a very quite disturbing little tale. So very gothic film. It's very gothically shot in a sort of like gothic sort of setting with, you know, a storm going outside, thunder, and almost like a castle sort of mansion in a very gothic clothes. And yes, it does look like that. You know, it's like, is this like a Vincent Price film? No, it's not. This is an Italian gothic horror film, and it's incredible. I love the film. I hate Dr. Hitchcock. I think he's a vile person. But does he succumb to it? You need to watch it. This is a 1962 film, Italian, and it is in colour. And if you do buy it, it does come in Italian and English language. It has been dubbed into English. So yes, I highly recommend The Horror of Dr. Hitchcock. Really cool. I'm so sorry about the lighting in today's video, guys. Nothing I can do about it. So I wanted to touch on the zombie genre, because if you're into you got into horror films, you know about zombie films, and you know about Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, you know, and all these wonderful, wonderful zombie films. But Europe were also producing zombie films. We're not going to go too far in the future. When I say future, for me it's future, with films like Zombie Flesh Eaters or The Living Dead of the Manchester Morgue. I'm going back to Spain to a set of films called the Blind Dead films, And there was one particular one that I picked out from those quadrilogy of films, and it's the second one called Return of the Evil Dead. Now, this is a fantastic film. Yes, this came out before The Evil Dead, guys. So it's not ripping off The Evil Dead. This was out, I believe, way before that. And this plays out a little bit like a zombie film and a home invasion film. In the first film, it's based around the Knights Templar that were sacrificing women back in ancient times, and they were using them for some sort of rituals in a very gory ways, and sort of like raping them and all this sort of thing. And the villagers had enough, and they went and they killed off the Knights Templars. But then the Knights Templars came back every year. The villagers tried to run this sort of festival to stop it from happening. But they would come back. And on this occasion, we got our group of protagonists stuck in a house with our blind dead Knights Templars outside trying to get in. We got zombies on horseback, guys. You don't get that anywhere else. This is why I love European zombie films over British horror films. I mean, over American horror films. I think they had a bit more originality. You know, we've had zombies riding horses. We've had zombies fighting sharks. You know, we've had zombies on the British moors. You know, so it's great. But this one here is an incredible film. Let's try and see if I can get a little bit of information about the actual film itself, which I very much doubt it's going to have any on here. This is a very old release from Anchor Bay. These still haven't had a proper release here in the UK. But yes, it doesn't tell me the year of the film. Let's see if it says anything on there. It just says 2005 that this was produced. But I'm going to go with probably early 70s, possibly, maybe even 60s. Really cool film. It's the second film from the Blind Dead series, directed by Armando de Osorio, and this tells the story of the depraved Templar Knights, whose eyes are burnt out by medieval vigilance to prevent them from finding their way back to hell. Now, on the 500th anniversary of the execution, the blind horsemen rise from their tombs to wreak bloody revenge on the town. Really cool. It's also got Frank Briley on this, who was in Pieces, which I absolutely love. Really cool film. Yeah, and to me, it's a great way into Italian or European. It's not Italian. I think it's Italian with Spanish. It's more of a Spanish film, but there was Italian sort of working on it. Zombie film. It's really cool. Yes, you can start at the beginning with the Tomb of the Dead, but I actually prefer this title. I just think it was more ambitious, and it wasn't. It just took it that just a bit further. And again, it's got the best looking zombies in any zombie film. So yes, I highly recommend that, guys, for your journey into European zombie films. My favorite director of all time is Italian, and it's Dario Argento. So I could not leave him out. And as we're talking about earlies, let's talk about his first giallo film, and it's The Bird with Crystal Plumage. Yes, we're returning to giallo with this one, but I wanted to because this took things to a different level. He was playing along more of the suspense rather than the gore. He played on the investigation side of these of our killer. And in this one, there's an amazing scene right near the beginning where this woman's being attacked in an art gallery, and we see our main guy, our hero, outside, and he runs over to the art gallery, and there's two sets of doors to go in and help. He gets into the first one because it's open, but the second lock's shut, so he's watching it through these plain glass, and then the second door behind him closes, and then he's stuck between, almost like he's stuck in a fishbowl and can't help. And you can see him watching this woman being attacked by our sort of killer, so he's witnessing it all but can't do nothing about it. And eventually he goes on the film to help out the police to investigate who was actually doing these wrongdoings. And it's an amazing way to start a film. And I just thought, wow, that is just so original. It's horrifying. But again, it just goes to demonstrate the mixture of thriller and horror, how they can blend so well together and become an incredible historical moment. And this to me is an historical important film, just because again it will probably be used in a lot of other films, but probably influenced by this film. And because it's from Dario Argento, who went to produce some of the greatest films, which we will touch on in the next part of this video, I had to include one in here. And this is the best way to start with Argento. Yes, he's got some big stopper films in there, Suspiria and things, but we'll get onto those in another video. But don't start there. I always say to you, don't start with the big hitters. With these directors, have a little bit look back at maybe some of their films before they made it sort of like extremely popular, because you might miss out on some gems and might not get it. You might think, oh, this is nowhere near as good as Suspiria, because it's a different film. Obviously, because this is a giallo and Suspiria is a supernatural witchcraft film. But you might be put off by it. So I always say, have a look back first. If you want to get into a certain director rather than just one film, look at Argento. And if you want to get into giallo, you need to start with this one and Blood on Black Lace. They're the two to start on. They're both incredible films. It's amazing film. So I highly recommend that. If you're trying to get into Italian horror or Italian giallo or European horror, get onto this film. It's really cool. Blood on Crystal Plumage. Really cool. Getting near the end, guys. Just 3 more titles, but we're off to Sweden now, because it's somewhere we haven't talked about very much. And we're going right back again, guys. right back with another silent movie. Like I said, this is introducing you to European horror. So a lot of it is going to be very early. And this one is going back to 1922. And it's directed by Benjamin Christensen. And it's called Haxan. Now, this is a release again by Radiance. And this is an amazing film. It's a documentary film, if you will. You think, what? They were making documentaries in 1922? Yes, they were. And about witchcraft. This is a documentary horror film about witchcraft. And this is an amazing release. If you buy this now, I think you'll just get the normal edition. I don't think you can get the collector's one now. But this is an incredible release. We've got 2 discs. It's got a set of art cards, which I will show you, because it shows some of the pictures that were being made in 1922, studying of witchcraft. How amazing is this? Look at the photography in this, and the photography in this is mind-blowing. Dare I say it, we've got a bare back of a woman in 1922 there. The devil himself made an appearance in this film. It's quite graphic pictures, aren't they, for 1922? I have a set of art cards based on this film. Amazing. The film comes on Blu-ray. It comes with an incredible booklet which accompanies it, which again has images, which you're thinking, how on earth did they get away with that in 1922? You know, it has loads of essays. It tells you about what sort of films this went on to influence. Season of the Witch, The Craft, whatever it is, this film has influenced so many films just because it's documentation of the history of European witchcraft, of witchcraft in Europe. Yes, it's an amazing film. So just tell you a bit of info about it. Like I said, it was by Benjamin Christensen. It's 1922. it runs for nearly 2 hours. And you think, well, they made films in 1922 that were 2 hours long. In Europe, they did. Were they afraid to make a documentary horror film? No, they weren't. So when you get all these mockumentaries, Blair Witch, um, Lake Mondo, all these which are mockumentaries, sort of like footage, this was pretty much the prequel to them all. Although this is based on historical folklore, the scenes in there are obviously all sort of like staged of witches and things like that. So it's almost like a found footage. It was filmed almost like a found footage. So to me, this is probably the first found footage film. If you ask my honest opinion, people say, where did found footage start? Haxan, I would say 1922, because they talk about witchcraft from not just Sweden but from around Europe, and they would show clips of things that were going on there, of a witch at a courtroom or a witch being burnt at stakes, on stuff like this. It's quite a graphic film, and it's almost narrated because it's silent, but it does have like a lot of writing in it, and he points with a stick and stuff like this, and it's really well done. It's a clever film for 1922. So please, guys, do yourself a favour now and pick up Haxan. If you're a horror fan, please pick this up. It's essential. If you're new to European horror, get this 3 or 4 movies down the line. Don't go straight in with this, because you might thinking, oh, but what's going on? But go with the ones that I've suggested, like Eyes Without a Face, Blood on Black Lace. I would go with those. The House That Screamed. I would go with those first, just to get a feel of European horror. Now, when you want to delve deeper into the history of European horror, Haxan, Das Cabinet, the Doctor Gallery, and one more to come. I would go into them. We've got 2 more films to look at, but that was from Sweden. We haven't looked at Britain yet, and because Britain's a part of Europe. Believe it or not, we are a part of Europe. We might say, oh, Brexit, that's to do with politics and stuff. It's not about you. We are still a part of Europe. So I'm including us in this video. And I'm going to an Ealing film. Not as old as some of these films. It's 1940s. I think this film was. I'm sure it was about 1945. I'm trying to see if it gives me the year on the box. It doesn't, but I'm sure it's about 1945, this film. And it's a film directed by Charles Griston, and it's called Dead of Night. A really cool film. Really cool. Yeah, I didn't go for obvious. I was going to go for Night of the Demon, but I thought no, because I've sort of covered supernatural witchcraft with Haxan, and I wanted to do something that's a little bit different. This plays with the mind a little bit more. And yes, we've got a mannequin on the front, because this is an anthology film, a very early anthology film. Now, if you don't know what anthology film is, it's normally a collection of short stories that sort of like have some kind of thing that connect with each other. And you've got a set of short stories all made into one movie. On this one, we have a guy who's gone to visit this house where these people are having a party, and he's been invited. And when he arrives, he feels like he's been there before and that he's met them all before. And he starts to describe things that they're going to do next and what they've done. And then they all break into these little individual stories of things. And all these wonderful sort of scary stories sort of happen when bad things happen to them, which later on in British horror, Amicus took a real delve in and did like a whole series of anthologies. But before that, we had Dead of Night, and it's and one of the stories does have a guy with a ventriloquist, which was incredible. I love anything to do with that. But it's a great film, and it sort of unfolds while you watch these mini stories. The main story starts to unfold in the house and the party when they start to discover that these weird things going on and the connection. So I won't go into it anymore because I want you to watch it. It's really cool, very clever. Again, if you're a fan of clever Hitchcock kind of movies, then this is your type of horror film. It's more of a sort of drama sort of horror film. So I've tried to cover everything in this film, like I said, from body horror to thrillers to zombies to witchcraft to drama. So this is a sort of drama film, and it was from Britain in the 1940s. Dead or Alive. So it's one thing I haven't touched on yet. Well, kind of have with Dr. Caligari, and that's the vampire. So of course, vampires again originate from European folklore. Again, sorry to disappoint our American friends who might think, that Dracula was American and all this sort of thing. No, it originated from European folklore. And how can any European beginners sort of, not guide as such, but recommendations be complete without Nosferatu, the German movie? I believe it's a German and Hungarian, I believe. Let's have a little look. So this is a German film from 1922, black and white, silent with English writings, and it has 2 or 3 different soundtracks on this. And that is the wonderful thing of this release by the BFI. You've got 3 different musical directional musics in this film. Really, really cool. It's an incredible film telling us the story of Count Orlok. This is a wonderful release on Blu-ray with a wonderful, wonderful booklet which explains the history and in complete depth of the film. It's just so much going on within this book, and it goes through all the different sort of music as well. I like the James Bernard soundtrack to it myself personally, but really, really cool. And it's been made. It's had a remake twice. It had one in 1979, I believe, with Klaus Kinski, and it's just had one by Robert Eggers with my hero Ralph Inson in it. So it's had 2 remakes, but this is lightly based upon Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is but it's changed the names of Count Orlok, and it's all been changed, but it's the same story. Now, the wife of Bram Stoker sued the German company that made this film and ordered all copies to be destroyed and burnt, and most were, but a couple have survived. And this is why we've managed to get this, because a couple weren't burnt. I think they must have been just sort of put away, hidden away. But yes, a lot of the original copies of this were burnt and destroyed, because that was a part of the agreement of when it was copyrighted and sued back in that day in the 1920s. Because it just took so much out of Bram Stoker's work and made it to its own sort of film. Now, I ain't got a problem with that, but I can understand if your family or your husband or yourself has put so much love and your life into this work to be produced as literature genius, just to be taken away and translated into a different sort of language with completely different new characters, but using everything that you've done. It's the same story. He lives in the castle. The guy goes there to sell property to him. He goes on a boat off to that area, falls in love with that girl. It's the same story, but they just changed all the names. So that's why it ended up being sued and nearly destroyed from the planet. But luckily, copies have survived of it, and now we can pick this up. This is on Blu-ray. I'm not sure if it's had a 4K restoration. I am not sure. But there we go. And guys, so if you want to get into European horror and you want to get into the history of European horror, like you may have only seen a few. You may have seen a few in your time without even knowing it. You more than likely have seen some British horror films. We're a part of Europe, but there are other countries that you may have missed and may not have known about if you're just getting into it. So like I said, this video is not me telling you how to suck eggs. It's just trying to appeal to people that may be just getting into cinema from around the world and maybe European horror. So these were my 10 very early European horror films that I recommend you digging out and watching. Obviously, we've got Nosferatu, the British Dead of Night. Nosferatu is German. We got Sweden with Haxan, Italy with The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, Spain with The Return of the Evil Dead, Italy with The Horrible Dr. Hitchcock, Germany with The Cabinet Dr. Caligari, I will get it right one day. Spain with The House That Screamed, Italy with Blood on Black Lace, and France with Eyes Without a Face. It's been a long video. Thanks for coming in. See you soon, guys. Massive shout out to my lad.